Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Eat. I'm feeling especially energized. I just got home from teaching Pilates, so how could I not be? And I made myself a hot matcha, which today's weather is pretty mild, so we might be in the beginning stages of transitioning to iced matchas because I do make that jump come the warmer months. But it has cashew milk, it has raw milk, it has magnesium L-threonate from Symbiotica. That is what I've been loving the past many months doing, is adding that magnesium to either my matcha or my coffee to give it some sweetener. And I did some collagen and it's everything. I've been delaying my matcha till after my workout because it just tastes 100% better. So highly recommend. I mean, I think it's good for us to delay caffeine as it is, as a side note, but especially if you're doing it after a workout, it is so much better. I don't know how to explain it. It just is. So highly recommend. Also highly recommend my matcha because it's the best quality. I'll link Peak Matcha in the show notes if you want to give it a go. But I was thinking about it as I was making it. I think there's some pretty mixed opinions when it comes to matcha. But I'm convinced it's not that you don't like matcha, you just haven't prepared it right yet. That's what I've concluded. I've come to this conclusion that it's not that you don't like it, because I think a lot of people are like, no way, don't like it. It's just you haven't found a way to prepare it that you enjoy. So do with that information what you will. I share a lot on Instagram about my matcha and different variations on how I prepare it. So by all means, go take a look, or if you need suggestions, my DMs are always open. If you ever want to talk about matcha, call me at any hour of the day. Call me when I'm sleeping. I love talking about matcha, so call me anytime. Same with coffee. I'll talk about these things anytime you want, so give me a call. I'm your girl. I'm your girl if you need some matcha inspiration or guidance. But anyways, today we're going to be talking about spring cleaning your wellness habits and routines. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about how I plan to be spring cleaning my own health and wellness habits, and then also some suggestions on how you might be able to do the same. So I hope you're feeling energized and excited as the warm weather approaches. And if you're not, you will after this episode. I'm telling you, this is going to reinvigorate you and make you ready to go, ready to rock, and really excited to invest in your health once again as we move into the spring. So, welcome to the table. Welcome to Let's Eat. I'm your host, Emily, certified holistic health coach, functional nutrition expert, and self-proclaimed wellness enthusiast, here to meet you at the intersection of physical and mental health, the space within which we become well. This podcast is meant to explore all areas of mind and body wellness, designed to offer you the integrative knowledge, behavioral strategies, and mindset shifts necessary to uplevel your health and feel better today. We'll explore nutrition, sleep, movement, self-care and stress management, habits and routines, self-development, gut health, mental health, and more. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome to the table. Let's eat. So let's talk about this concept of spring cleaning. Now, for obvious reasons, it is March going into April, so obviously we are in the spring. But also, I feel like there's this energy about this idea of spring cleaning. I don't know if I'm alone in this, but it just feels fresh. It feels new. It just feels, I don't know, there's just energy to it around this concept of spring cleaning that I feel like we can liken it so much to our health and wellness and use this as a way for us to maybe adjust some wellness habits, incorporate some new ones, and really just take an audit of what we're doing currently and what we want to carry with us into the warmer weather, into the spring and summer, and so forth. So I was thinking about spring cleaning, some of the things that I've been doing around my house, and then I thought about spring cleaning my own wellness habits. So I want to talk a little bit about what my plans are in that regard, but then also give you some suggestions and maybe some ideas on how you can start to spring clean over the next couple weeks so that we head into the summer feeling better. This was also inspired, and I have to mention this, by a masterclass that I held last spring called Spring Cleaning. So I guess That was also the inspiration for this episode. I chronically do not have storage on my computer. I've shared on this before, nor do I ever have storage on my phone. So I had to remove certain files, and a lot of those files are videos of either past master classes that I've done, or I used to have a monthly membership, so I have content from that. So I had to remove it, and I'm gonna just start uploading them to YouTube because I have them. I'm not doing anything with them, so I did that with this masterclass. So I'll link that in the show notes. You can go ahead and take a listen to this. I guess it's probably about maybe an hour and 10 minutes, or maybe an hour, of how to spring clean your habits and routines, but we'll also be talking a little bit about that today. So what is the point of spring cleaning? Now, if we're thinking about spring cleaning through the context of what most of us know spring cleaning as, this is about taking time to either clean out your closet, clean out your garage, clean out your home, clean out your fridge. Just go through your space. We'll just say our space, in a way that maybe you don't usually do on a week-to-week basis. You know, maybe a closet has become super cluttered, or maybe you just want to go through your clothes. I know for me, all of my winter clothes are still hanging in my closet, so it'll be probably this next week that I go through and swap it out and add more spring and summer clothing. Or even just doing deeper cleaning than maybe you would before, opening all the windows and cleaning your floors, or cleaning, I don't know, your kitchen on a deeper level than you would before. Whatever it is. There's so many different ways to describe it. I'm wondering how we can take that same concept and apply it to our health. And not in the sense of I need to overhaul all of my habits and routines and completely change everything, but instead just start to bring closer awareness to what are the habits that I want to keep with me in the spring and summer, and what are the habits that I want to spring clean, right? Or what are the habits that I want to adjust? And being willing to take the time, as you would to spring clean, to really look at your habits underneath the microscope and take into more consideration what is serving me and what is not. I had spoken over the weekend about how I have a very hard time not racing for my coffee first thing in the morning. And this has been a long, long journey for me. And I've certainly made incredible improvements, especially as I've been on my hormone journey, around monitoring that, as opposed to just getting up and having my coffee right away, which I highly recommend, especially women, having something to eat beforehand and taking some time instead of reaching for your cup of coffee. I joked about how the sound of my coffee pot going off, I would auto set it when I lived with my dad, and I could hear it in the kitchen, and that would be essentially my alarm clock. The sound of it dripping, the sound of it brewing, the sound of it beeping when it was done. And that would get me up and out of bed, not to mention the smell of it, of course. So that habit was a hard one to break because I was so embedded in it, and I love my coffee. But I started to pay attention to how do I feel when doing this? And what was even more powerful was how do I feel when I'm not doing this? So it was not until I started to pay attention and build awareness around this habit that I notice I feel exponentially better in mind and body when I am not having coffee as quickly as I am every morning, where I'm having something to eat beforehand, or I'm drinking a lot of water before I have it, or, whatever the case might be, delaying it. And that was fuel for me and motivation for me to keep doing that. But you can't do this until you really pay attention to how certain habits make you feel. You can't spring clean your habits if you don't realize that they're dirty, we'll say. I know that's maybe not the best word, but if we're going with this spring cleaning example or comparison, let's just use it for now. You can't really do much about it if you don't realize, if you don't open that closet that you've just been throwing things in for months and you just refuse to look in that closet, you're not going to know that you need to clean it. You're not going to confront the fact that it's dirty or that it's cluttered or that you have to take care of it. You have to be willing to build awareness, and you have to be willing to open the door and look at the closet and say, yeah, okay, I should probably do something about this, right? So this is very similar to our habits. It's about looking on a closer level, paying attention to how they're impacting you, or maybe you've just lost touch. I know for me, and that's going to be a lot of the examples that I use. I've lost touch with a lot of habits that I know ground me and help me feel my best in the mornings. I've had a long winding road with meditation. That's been something that has ebbed and flowed. Other habits like not using my phone first thing in the morning, things of that capacity that I've really lost touch with. And this is my opportunity to kind of reinstate them in a realistic way, of course. But it's about spring cleaning these routines so that they're a little bit more organized, they're a little bit more grounded, they're a little bit more in alignment with what I want them to look like, or how I want to start and end my day, or even just routines throughout the day. I think there can be also examples of spring cleaning too, right? When it comes to our environment. I know for me, I do not clean out my fridge nearly as much as I probably should. And when I say clean out the fridge, I mean take out the shelves, wash them down, organize, get rid of things that I'm not using, or that have gone bad or expired, or whatever the case is. That's another way of supporting your health and wellness through spring cleaning. And it has nothing to do with, I guess technically it has nothing to do with what you're eating or moving your body or anything of that capacity. I mean, just in general, how much of an impact our environment has on our psychology, and how being in a space that's cluttered, which I am notorious for clutter. I won't be completely transparent. I don't organize as much as I probably should. And I don't like it. I want to make that something that I don't do. But I find that I'm so busy and I don't leave enough time for myself to really organize, or, because I live alone, I think that also, it's not like somebody else is in my space. So I have more flexibility and more freedom. But what a difference it makes when I am organized, when I am on top of that, and how much better I feel. So that 110% can make a huge difference in a mental and physical health capacity when we're taking time to take care of our space. Because I think that they say, I'll have to look into this, but if your space is cluttered, that's typically a representation of what's going on in your brain. That hits hard for me. I won't lie. I won't lie. There's always a lot going on in my brain. And there sometimes tends to be a lot going on in my space. But what a difference I feel when I'm organized and when I have things put away and folded and my kitchen's clean. I think that's probably the hardest spot for me, is my kitchen. And I just don't feel as good when things are the way they are. So when it comes to this spring cleaning concept, for me personally, I'm going to talk a little bit about what my plan is moving into the spring and how this might be relevant for you. I think what we don't talk about enough is how much of an impact our habits and routines have on our health and how we feel. I'll say our health and how we feel. Those are the two most important pieces. So not just how we feel in day to day, but also how it impacts our health over the course of time. And I think that we would all be so much more motivated to, say, spring clean our habits if we paid more attention. Our habits make up who we are. Our habits make up who we are. So think about the routines that you maybe fall into. Think about the routines that you've practiced for years. Think about, what habits fill your mornings and what habits fill your evenings. And then think about how you feel and what your life looks like in relation to those habits. I will say our bodies and our brains thrive on habits. So it's not wrong of you to be someone who has habits and lives day to day in the midst of habits and operates a lot out of habit, because that's what our brain and our bodies want. We want to conserve energy. We like the predictability. We like efficiency. And that's what comes from relying on habits. So to that point, just as our body thrives on that, it also takes time for us to no longer operate out of habit. They say that if you brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand, that is something that is really nourishing or growthful for our cognition, I believe, or just for I forget exactly what it is. I just read, it's challenging you. You know what I mean? And it's such a simple task, but I think about brushing my teeth with my left hand, and I'm like, that feels so wrong. That feels so off. But you're essentially challenging the brain to do something that it's not used to, and kind of breaking that neural pathway, or weakening that neural pathway, we'll say, because you're so used to using your right hand, say, now forcing your left hand, that's requiring more of your brain, more focus, more energy to do that. And it's something that we could all do because it's simple and we all brush our teeth, at least I hope. So that was just a side tangent as it relates to habits and routines. But I think the more that we spend time looking at these more granular parts of our lives, the more we'll realize, wow, this actually is so influential upon who I am and how I feel and my health. And now is my opportunity, as we move into the spring, to be a little bit more intentional and pay more attention. Maybe you take a week. Let's do this. If you're listening to this episode, it is April 1st. Okay, so perfect timing. But if you're listening to this episode at another time, whether it's end of April, maybe it's in the summer, whenever it is, take the next week to simply pay closer attention to your habits. That's all. You're not making any changes. You're not doing anything differently. You're simply looking at your habits and routines over the next week and starting to observe different habits and different behaviors throughout the day. From that information, from that self-study, we'll say, you can then decide, all right, where do changes need to be made? What can I do differently? Because like I said, we get caught up in the autopilot of life. We get caught up in the day-to-day. And in order to spring clean our habits and our routines, we have to be aware that they are bringing us discomfort or bringing us less energy or bringing us some sort of deficit or disadvantage over the course of the day. And it's only then can we decide, all right, I'm just going to keep doing this because I just don't care, or because it's too hard to change, and that's completely fine. Or I'm going to spring clean this habit and make it a little bit more productive, a little bit more nourishing, fueling, energizing, or whatever the case might be, in order to feel better. Because I think most of you are listening to this because you either want to feel better or you are on a daily pursuit to helping yourself feel better. And so that's why we would notice it, right? We would pay attention to these things that are not serving us. I'll give a few examples for me. Coffee on an empty stomach. In the moment, yes, love every second of it. But it wasn't until I started to notice how I felt throughout the day. It was my anxiety, my focus, my energy, all of that was impacted. Then, conversely, when I was more proactive about having something before coffee or having water or, whatever the case was, or delaying it even, I noticed what a difference it made in my focus, energy, anxiety, and so forth throughout the day. So that was enough for me to make the decision that waiting an hour or waiting 30 minutes after waking, for the sake of the rest of the day feeling 1,000% better, that is worth my while. Secondly, being on my phone. Now, this is hard because I do work from my phone. But putting more boundaries around waking up and not being on my phone, and also before bed, makes a huge difference, because then usually during that time, I am journaling, reading, meditating, and it's not necessarily the absence of my phone that is making me feel differently. Yes, maybe there's less stress, maybe I'm not so consumed, maybe I'm not jumping right into work or scrolling or doing whatever the case is, which tends to happen, right, when we open our phone. But I'm doing things instead that bring my body nourishment that I might not make time for otherwise. So that's also something important to consider. What am I doing instead? What am I replacing the scrolling habit, the checking my email, the whatever? What am I replacing that with? And how is that impacting how I feel? And it's enormous. It is so enormous. And especially as it gets nicer, I like to sit out on the deck with my book, maybe my blanket because it's not super, super warm out yet, and I meditate out there and I hear the birds, and it is just the best. So that's another example. That's one of my bigger ones come the spring. Now that we're using this in the example and I'm giving you this example, I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. But especially as I learned about high cortisol, and I just want to do so much more for my nervous system, and meditation and breath work is hands down one of the best things that we can be doing. And doing that first thing in the morning, what a tremendous influence it can have on how you feel. I mean, you're just essentially stepping on the brake, because so many of us are waking up and stepping on the accelerator and not stopping. And then it's not until we get into bed that we force ourselves off the accelerator to maybe get to sleep, and yet still we're not having the best quality sleep. So just imagine that if you are doing any kind of mindfulness, meditation, breath work, whatever the case is, and you are doing that religiously, consistently, just imagine that you're putting your foot on the brake and giving your body a chance to reset. And that's so incredibly important. So needless to say, that is a big, big, big goal of mine come the warmer months, is to be more intentional about this nervous system support first thing in the morning. Now, this is something that I've done before, but I'm still going to start slowly. And this is one of the biggest things that I can suggest to you when it comes to spring cleaning. Spring cleaning, I feel like, comes across as being this, oh, it's just one day and I just clean out all the things and whatnot, and it's just a whole long day, maybe a Sunday you just dedicate to cleaning. But what I would suggest for something around your habits and routines is to just take things slowly. For example, this assignment that I'm giving you for the week to follow when it comes to taking an audit of your habits and looking at your routines and maybe even writing it down. I mean, that can be really helpful to journal about it. Take the time to say, how did today feel? And start to list out, well, I started the day doing this, or, in the afternoon, I had, another coffee at like 4:00, which in the moment I needed it, but that really impacted my sleep later on, or whatever the case might be. Start to pay attention, build awareness, take some notes, and cultivate that understanding. But I'm never going to suggest now that on day one of that second week, you're suddenly just expected to just completely change now that you have all these notes and all of this information about your habits and your routines. Instead, take the month of April to really start to gradually reorient yourself, realign with the habits that you want to incorporate. For example, what I'm going to do for the meditation piece is I'm just going to start with 5 minutes of meditation, and then build on that. I'm not expecting myself to get up to 20, which at one point I was doing 20 minutes, just starting with 5 minutes, because I know realistically that's where I am to start. And if I continue to try and push myself to 20, I'm just never going to do it. I'm going to sabotage any effort. I'm not going to be successful. So to start, I'm just going to do 5 minutes. And that's totally reasonable. Same with the phone. I'm going to keep my phone on Do Not Disturb for, say, 20 minutes after I wake up. And then build it up to 30 minutes. And then build it up to 40 minutes. I mean, maybe even starting with 10 minutes. I don't know. I have to play around with it. But the expectation is not to go from black to white. The expectation is not to completely transform the habits. It's instead, the spring cleaning is the awareness building. That's what this really is. The spring cleaning is building awareness around what habits are serving you and what habits are not. And then secondly, analyzing where you are in relation to making a change within that habit. I don't know what is wrong with me, but I'm having a hard time taking full deep breaths. And so I keep having to pause it to take a deep breath because I feel like I'm just continually short of breath. I don't know why this is happening. Anyways. So that is my suggestion for you when it comes to the spring cleaning. First step is building awareness around the habits. And then second step is meeting yourself where you are. So taking a look at where you are in relation to the habit. And then deciding, okay, where do I need to start in order for me to gradually incorporate this habit back into my life, or to make an adjustment to said habit, or whatever the case is. If you found that you've become dependent upon that 4:00 coffee for the sake of, say, the fitness class that you have to teach at 5:30, I would never suggest just stop drinking that cup of coffee, because clearly that's helping you in some way. Maybe it is more habitual than it is actually the caffeine that you need, but there is a reason for that. So instead, maybe you start to have it at 3:30, and then you go a week having it at 3:30, and then you start to bring it back to 3. Or maybe you do half calf and you start to pull back the time. But it's never expected to go black to white where you're just stopping it cold turkey completely. It's instead letting your body adjust, letting yourself have some flexibility with, I don't like to say breaking the habit, but more so just adjusting the habit. Maybe you swap out that coffee for a green tea. Maybe you swap that out for something protein rich. Maybe that's going to help you kind of get through class. Whatever the case is, finding ways to just slowly break down, dismantle that habit and replacing it with something that's more productive that you're going to see, wow, my sleep is so much better because I'm not having 100 milligrams of caffeine, which, by the way, caffeine has a half-life of 5 hours. So if you're having 100 milligrams of caffeine at 4 o'clock, see, here I am taking a deep breath. What is wrong with me? You're still seeing 50 milligrams of caffeine in your system at 9 o'clock. And then still 25 milligrams of caffeine at 2 a.m. So something to keep in mind around your caffeine use first and foremost, but also as it relates to a habit. It's about identifying the habits that do not serve you and then deciding, how am I making adjustments here? How can I improve this habit? How can I replace this habit? And then deciding to incrementally make that shift in your life so that you are not making extreme changes all at once and then not sustaining them. I think spring is also a time that we should give ourselves some grace. And I think this is a perfect time from a season of maybe more hibernation, slower pace, moving into the summer, which is typically much faster pace. There's more to do. We're traveling. We're maybe not working as much. There's just a lot more going on. I think this period of time is an important transition where we should be gentle and we should allow ourselves to kind of come out of that hibernation and start to get back into the swing of maybe things that are busier. Because I think as we move into April and May, that's when we start to see more events. We have more things on the weekend. People are going out more, and it's kind of that resurgence. And so giving yourself the time, I think April is the perfect month to start to be gentle and really transition in a gradual way, as opposed to I'm going all in, really committing, completely changing my habits and routines. I think more realistically and from a sustainability standpoint, it's just not as effective as going a little bit more gradually, being honest about where you are, and, starting to be a little bit more realistic with it. So using the month of April, or if you just need a boost of motivation or energy any time of year, I think this is a great episode to listen to. But for the sake of right now, looking at the month ahead, it's about meeting yourself where you are and making adjustments as necessary. Not to mention, if we're speaking about coming from a season that is cold to a warmer season, it makes sense that we want to give ourselves that kind of transition, that gradual transition from cold to warm. Think about it. I mean, I think about coming out of a cold plunge. It takes me a little bit to get warm again, right? So why are you expecting yourself to come out of a cold season where it's more this hibernation energy? I love the thought of that. Or, we're just living a little bit differently in comparison to the way we live when it's warm and it's the summer. So using that same kind of mentality, moving through April as you make adjustments, use this month as an opportunity for you to legitimately spring clean. And I'm saying your environment, I'm saying your fridge, but also your habits and your routines, and looking at them under a microscope and deciding what works, what doesn't. And this might not be a, right off the bat change that suddenly is transformative. No, it might take time for you to find your way and to find a habit or find a routine or find an adjustment that does work for you, that is doable, that's, fits into your schedule, that's not overwhelming, that's not too time consuming, and that actually serves you. Now, that's another piece. We see so much on social media about what we should be doing. And if for those of you who maybe are not on social media, you're not as active, you might not get it. But Or you might not, and that's not meant to say, oh, you don't get it. No, it's more to say like you're kind of lucky because I think we're like inundated with morning routines and nighttime routines. And I really try to talk about these concepts as being legitimate bookends to your day, not just some, 20-step routine that has to be ultra time consuming. No, finding the habits that are actually worth your while, that actually help you. And then whenever I share what I'm doing, it's because I want to be able to also share what I'm doing, but then share why and give you the legitimate reason. Like telling you about deep breathing for the sake of your nervous system, that hopefully inspires you to go ahead and do it, as opposed to, well, I just saw someone doing it, so I thought I should do it. It's like, no, understand why, because then you can really determine, is this actually bringing value to my day? Is this actually filling my cup? And I think that that's huge. That's so important. So instead of just seeing what everyone's doing, because think about it, if you're expecting yourself to do a 20-step morning routine for the sake of self-care, for the sake of having a routine, and you simply cannot make it happen because of the time or because of your children or whatever the case is, that's going to bring you more stress than it's going to bring you self-care. That's going to bring you more of a headache than it is. And you're going to always feel like you're not meeting the routine, you're not meeting the expectations, and you're going to wonder, wow, I don't feel good. This is not fun for me. And it's going to make you feel worse. The point of a morning routine is to set the tone for the day. It's to set the trajectory for your day. And same with nighttime routines too. So it's about finding what works for you. And I think taking the time to take a look, using this as an opportunity to spring clean, whether you've had a routine or not, can really be a helpful guide for you to, oh my God, guys, I'm literally struggling to breathe right now. What is going on? Maybe this is a sign that I need to be doing more deep breathing. Oh goodness, I lost my train of thought. Whether or not you've had a routine or you don't, or you're looking to get started with a routine, this is a good opportunity for you to just take a closer look at what it is that you are doing, because we all have some sort of routine, whether it's a healthful one, nourishing, fill your cup one or not. We all have a routine of some kind at some point during the day, whether it's at night, in the morning, whatever. I mean, think about it. We all have some sort of bedtime routine. We brush our teeth, we put our pajamas on, we lay in bed, we scroll, we read, we journal, we watch TV, whatever the case is. There's always some sort of routine to the day. So now it's just about being honest with yourself about how that routine is serving you or not. And spring cleaning is a perfect opportunity to do just that, to take the time and pay attention to, how is this helping me? I mean, something as simple as I'm staying up an extra 2 hours at night, as an example, on my phone scrolling, and then I wonder why I'm having trouble getting up in the morning, or I don't feel as rested throughout the day, or my sleep quality is suffering. You could continue to lay there and scroll night after night after night and continue to feel the way you do over the course of the day. And maybe you might have some awareness around, yeah, that's probably not the best move. That's probably why I don't feel so great. But it's not until you actually sit down to evaluate it and say, all right, what am I going to do here? How am I going to adjust this? It's not to say I'm going to just stop scrolling entirely, but maybe I'm just going to scroll for an hour and a half and pull back a little, and then pull it back a little bit more and start to curtail that, as opposed to I'm just going cold turkey and that's it, I'm done. Or starting to replace it, right? Replace it with another habit. I know that social media and scrolling is hard to replace because there is such a dopamine component to it, but finding other alternatives that are less stimulating that will help you and then also promote better quality sleep, totally worth your while. But you can't do something about it until you know that it's happening. You can't do anything about anything until you have awareness around it. So something that I had done last summer was my 10-10-10-10 routine. So it was 10 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of walking, 10 minutes of meditation, and 10 minutes of journaling in the morning. And I think I'm going to bring that back because I also do want to add in more walking. I'm tempted to buy a walking pad, and I've been saying this for months. I did get a standing desk too, so I feel like I want to get a walking pad for the sake of the standing desk, but I want to be more aware of my step count, and I think that would be a great way of doing it. But also just in the morning and getting outside, and especially if I'm welcoming a new friend into my life in a couple weeks, I think that would be very helpful for both of us. But bringing that 10-10-10-10 back, which I think I call it the 4x10 morning routine, I think is going to be a helpful way of doing that, but not expecting 10 minutes for myself, especially when it comes to meditation. So maybe just starting with 5 minutes and starting to get comfortable there, and then building up to 10 minutes is the goal. But I think really what my plan is moving into the spring and in my own spring cleaning endeavor is to really give myself a solid first hour in the morning to do all of the things that are going to fill my cup that are most supportive of my nervous system. And so that looks like exactly what I'm saying. Reading, just making time to read. I don't do that enough. I've talked about all the books I'm reading and how much I love it, but I'm not doing it enough. Making time to journal, making time to meditate, and making time to walk and get myself outside and get some sunlight and really being diligent and setting that boundary, because it's a tough one. I am so the type of person that gets up and I'm just ready to rock. I'm ready to work. I'm ready to start the day. And it's like, no, Emily, give yourself this time, because you'll be so much more productive and so much of the person that you want to be if you give yourself that time. So that's the intention as far as my mornings go, keeping myself off of blue light and focusing on all of these other things. If I don't go on my phone, there's no reason why I can't do all of these things, because it's so much easier than being distracted. So I'm looking forward to that, especially as I can sit outside and do it and, take advantage of nature being right there and the birds chirping and the sun and the sounds of the morning. It's just so lovely. And then let's talk about nighttime and my nighttime routines and how I plan to spring clean those. So I think the hardest part for me when it comes to nighttime routines is winding down with enough time to make a nighttime routine possible. I feel like it can be hard, especially if I'm taking a Pilates class in the evening. I taught a couple Pilates classes over the past few weeks in the evening, so that definitely throws me off. But ideally, giving myself a good 30 to 45 minutes in the evening, in bed, all said and done, so that I can read and wind down. That would be ideal. Some of the things that I've been loving in the evenings before bed is the magnesium spray by Symbiotica. I will link it in the show notes. It has been wonderful. I spray it all over my torso, my chest, and I also put it in my belly button, and that has been really helpful for sleep quality. I also have been mouth taping again, and that was something that I wasn't doing as regularly, I think because I ran out of the mouth tape, but I just switched to a new one and I really, really like it. Now, I've been waking up some nights or some mornings with it off of my mouth, so I'm not sure what I'm doing in the middle of the night, but I'm more often than not keeping it on my mouth over the course of the night, and I really like it. So I've been mouth taping, and I think this is really also very helpful for your nervous system, because by breathing more intentionally through the nose, just because you're being forced to, that's going to help nourish your nervous system much more than breathing through your mouth. So that's something that I have been very intentional about overnight. I have a red light therapy mask, so I've been doing that in the evenings for my skin. I'd like to get a red light, just a red light that I can sit in front of, or that I can honestly turn on before I go to bed as being my only light. That helps a whole lot to wind down, to support melatonin production, and red light in general has a multitude of benefits, but that will remain on my wish list for a little while longer. But then as far as cleaning up my habits, it's more just about getting off my gosh darn phone and reading and forcing myself to read and only read or journal or meditate. I have been sleeping with a meditation. I've been falling asleep to it, which I really enjoy, because not having Lou with me and the silence and not having her there has been a little challenging. So it's been nice to fall asleep to just regulating my breath and just gently, gently dozing. Oh my gosh, that took me a second there. Dozing off. I've been liking Chelsea Jackson Roberts on the Peloton app for that. You can listen to anyone you want. I'll be completely honest with you. This might be so random, but I like Kristen, who she's no longer with Peloton, but you can still use her meditations. And I also like Aditi. And with Aditi, I think she's my favorite, but the music that she chooses, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because it's in minor key or what, but it makes me depressed. And I don't say that lightly. I don't mean that. I don't like to use that word just lightly. Like, it actually makes me feel very sad, and it makes me think about life in a different way. It's so strange. I know that listening to music that's in minor key definitely brings about different emotions in comparison to major key. And so I don't know if that's what it is, but whatever reason, the music that she plays alongside her meditation, it's not all of her meditations, but some of them, brings out pretty sad emotions within me. And I don't like that very much, especially when I'm trying to go to bed. So I just don't listen to her meditations at night. And I don't know if that's like weird or why that happens to me, but I think I've shared before, like I'm very affected by music, and I don't know if that's like a shared experience. But yeah, I don't know. It just really, really affects me, and I don't like listening. As soon as I turn her meditation on, and I hear the beginning of the one song that she uses, I turn it off because I'm like, I don't like this. I don't want to listen to it. It just makes me have all these like existential thoughts and really morbid thoughts, and I'm good. I'm good on that. So that is kind of the tentative plan for nighttime. It's not very structured, but it's more just similar energy to morning routine, creating bookends that best support the entirety of the day. That's really what I want to focus on, and it really just requires self-discipline. So this is kind of the energy I'm bringing into my spring cleaning. I'm also spring cleaning my space. So I need to clean the fridge. So that's on the agenda for this week or this weekend. I want to clean the environment a little more. And I've been mentioning that I have been looking into more decor and more, items to bring into my space that I love and that make it cozier and make it more like home. So that has been kind of ongoing, but I would consider that spring cleaning, I guess. I would consider that spring cleaning because I don't know, is that spring cleaning? I don't really know if that's kind of just that's just an ongoing project of mine, but it's been fun, and I've been finding different things that I like, and just one item at a time that, this fits nicely here, or, I'll add this in here. So that's continuing to be a focus of mine. And I don't want to buy everything online. I'm really interested to go out and find places. One of my best friends just bought a townhouse, so I told her we need to spend a day just going to different stores, antique stores, thrift stores, just to see what we can find. So that's on the agenda as well. But to help support you in your spring cleaning, I know I kind of briefly mentioned mine. There's probably other goals as well. I think I mentioned this, but I do want to get more steps in. I did mention that. So that is definitely a goal, whether it's, carving out intentional time. I mentioned that my workout schedule is kind of all over the place because I've started teaching. So it's kind of up in the air as far as when and how I work out because I have to factor in teaching now. So that's been an adjustment, but steps are something I can do anytime because it's low impact. It's just something to break up the day. And I've shared before how valuable it is to move in that way. So that is the plan alongside these other plans. And I really just want to continue to take care of myself, which is always the goal. So that can look differently every single day, but that is always a goal. That's spring, summer, fall, winter. That was always the case. That's always a priority. And just in different seasons of life, it looks differently. But really honing in on my evening and my morning routines is a big goal of mine in the spring. So I challenge you with your assignment here. I know we talked a little bit about why spring cleaning is relevant, what that means in relation to your wellness. I shared on my personal goals for the next several weeks. But I encourage you to use April as an opportunity to be really reflective on your habits. And once again, with your assignment, because I'm giving you homework that I won't get to check in on, so you have to hold yourself accountable to it. Or send me a message and tell me that you did it because I'd love to hear that. But your homework assignment is to start to really hone in on this. Hone in on your habits. Every single thing you do over the course of the day, in most cases, is a habit. and we don't really know how much they impact us and how much they impact our health until we start paying attention to it. So I think really giving yourself the opportunity to reflect in that way and look a little closer at them, I think that could be extremely valuable. And then giving yourself the opportunity to rewire them, reform them, and decide, how can I make this a little bit better? How can I change this a bit? How can I replace this? How can I be more intentional about my day and what my habits look like for the sake of a better spring and summer? Because that's what spring cleaning is all about. It's about refreshing, resetting, getting ready for the next season. Like I said, we're typically much busier in the summer, I would say. We have a lot going on. There's a lot of going here and there. And so setting a solid foundation and taking the time to reflect on, what habits do I want to bring with me that will help me feel most grounded, that will help me feel most aligned with my goals, that will nourish my mind and body the best, even in the midst of the chaos of the summer, is the best route to take. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I love talking about habits and routines. I love talking about productivity and personal development and personal growth and things of that capacity. So this was a little bit of both, a little bit of habits and routines and a little bit of health and wellness, if you will. I also have an episode, I don't know when from, but it's all about building a habit. So I'm going to link that in the show notes because that's a whole different topic and a whole different ballgame, but talking about habit development and understanding how to form a habit and how to address a habit that maybe you want to, replace or address, whatever the case might be. I will link that episode in the show notes. But thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you are excited about the next several months getting warm. I personally feel like this summer is such an optimal time for us to invest in our health. Maybe others feel differently because being on vacation and traveling, but just know that there's always an opportunity to take care of yourself. Doesn't have to be perfect. There's different things that we can be doing over the course of our day to really invest and to nourish ourselves, fuel ourselves properly. And I think the summer, and of course the spring and the summer, is loaded with opportunity to do that. There's more daylight, there's lots of seasonal produce, we can be outside more so we can get more active. So take advantage, enjoy, and thank you again for tuning in. I hope that you're feeling energized, you're feeling ready to go. Good luck on your homework assignment. I expect full completion, and if you want to check in with me on it, you know where to find me. And until next time, be well.